For many years now, Russ and Craig have had many wide-ranging conversations with folks from all over the gaming world. This is one of those conversations.
D6G, the Lost Chapter.
And so that's why I told them, like, you know, the Splenda tastes awesome. Oh, hey, Russ.
Yeah.
Look at that guy. That's Ted Terranova over there.
It is. It is. The man whose name is like a sun. Is that right? I think
or New Land. You know,
yes.
Whatever, Russ.
Well,
you know, you can go with a total flippant, complete, ignores Latin completely. You can do that. Ted, how are you?
Hey, guys. Good to see you here.
What are you enjoying here at Dunkin' Donuts today?
Come on over.
I usually just get my coffee, and then I'll get a veggie flatbread sandwich. I like that.
Nice. Low calorie, too. Look at that. Being very healthy.
There you go.
Yeah. No double jelly for you.
All those Rivet Wars fans need you around as long as possible.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right.
Staying healthy. Very cool. Well, come on over and sit down. We were just talking about, Splenda. But before that, we were talking about Kickstarter. And obviously, you've got, a huge experience under your belt now with Kickstarter. And Russ, what were you talking about? You're like, I'm still a little confused. You're talking about the difference between
I'm just saying, like, when I go
game versus buying on Kickstarter.
Well, I just find it curious because first I was wondering, like, okay, so when we as gamers, the three of us or whoever, go out to buy a game, so you're going into the game store, your favorite professional local game store, and so what lures you to buy a game there? And then when you go to Kickstarter, is it sort of the same things, or do you have different minimum requirements for a Kickstarter before you back it, as opposed to a game you can see on the shelf? So I guess to kind of start with this, like Ted, when you're in a game store and you're thinking about pulling the trigger on a game, like what gets you interested in a game? Like, is it the box cover? Is it the components? Is it the theme? What kind of draws you in?
I gotta say, a good box cover will draw me in.
See, like a good artist. Look at this guy. He's like all about the art.
Totally. Like if there's just a beautiful cover, it's like, wow, what is this about? But then definitely I'm turning the box around and I want to see like what the components are, like what's in there.
So you're like me. You're a bling guy. You want to see all the cool shiny bits.
Oh yeah.
And then you're like, oh, by the way, is this game any good? Is there mechanics here I care about?
Right. Well, that's when you pull out the iPhone, or you go look for reviews and stuff like that. See what people think.
Craig, do you do that too? Like, how do you approach a game?
iPhone, yeah. No. Oh, what? Sorry. Oh, you mean look at the back of the box?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What draws you to a game?
I almost every game I buy is an impulse buy. And it's always the box art is always what's going to suck me in first. And then I will totally flip it around and look and see if the game itself, because usually on the back of the box it actually has a photo of what's in it, so you can see exactly what's coming in the box and see if it lives up to the artwork. And the thing that draws me to the artwork primarily is going to be theme. So if I walk by and it's like Romans or combat or like a World War II board game or something like that, that'll like suck me in and I'll start looking at it but it's almost always an impulse buy. I'm not really keyed into Board Game Geek and the whole online reality of being a gamer has somehow escaped me to this day. So I don't usually hear the buzz and then get excited and then go looking for the games. For instance, I had totally forgotten that the Spartacus expansion came out yesterday, and Russ, of course, tweeted it. And oh my God, I immediately went online and emailed Myriad, and I said, I need one of these. And they were like, absolutely, we'll set it aside. And I grabbed it, and I would have grabbed it anyway because, A, the box art is awesome on those games, and B, when you flip it, you're like, oh my God, it comes with 2 more gladiators. And so it's got all kinds of cool stuff. But it's absolutely 100% impulse buy for me, which is when we get to talking about Kickstarter, an interesting intersection with me and Kickstarter, where usually it's an impulse buy. It's the immediate, instant gratification is what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I come out kind of with you, Ted. So what I do is, and both you actually, I come in and I look at if it's a game I don't know about, because there's really two cases here, right? One of them is a recommendation, someone, or you've played the game before. So one of them is like you see it at a con, right, or one of your friends just played it, or you get demoed the game at a store, or you play it with a friend's house, and all of a sudden you're like, I got to go buy this. That's one thing. But then there's I'm kind of thinking about the impulse buy here to compare it to Kickstarter, because the impulse buy is sort of like, I haven't played it yet, which is sort of like Kickstarter, right? So what's going to get me to buy the game? And I'm kind of with you, Ted. I look at the box cover, I look at the back. It's all about the components for me. I'm curious about the mechanics, like if it says Euro or if I can see the bits on it or whatever. But then I will pull out my phone and I will go to Board Game Geek, and I'm not going there to see, well, if this game's not above an 8.7, I am not going to consider it. It's more of a, is it not a 4? It's like, does it? Because if I like the components and I like the theme, as long as it doesn't suck, I'll probably enjoy it. That's kind of where I am.
Yeah.
What do you guys have budgets at all? Like, does that come into
yes?
Into it's the end of the month, I've already gone over my budget, that kind of thing,
Well, that's part of it too, right? So cost is definitely a factor. So I do have a budget. Myriad Games is an interesting strategy where you can have a regular amount of money put into the store, and when you do that each month, and when you do that, they give you bonus money, and that buys you store credit. And so you kind of pre-budget. So. Oh, wow. So, but what's smart about that is they give you extra money, but they're also guaranteeing you're going to spend X amount of dollars in their store. So it's a very clever, well played. Dan is a very sophisticated businessman. But anyway, so that keeps me on budget, because basically I go in on the first of the month and you're feeling all large, like, woohoo, my Myriad credits have recharged now. I have the X amount to spend this month. But it does matter. For me, for example, I was looking at buying Dreadball, and Dreadball, it's got the cool art cover, it's got cool stuff in the back, but it's $85 for 2 teams.
Yeah,
that's a lot of money, and so I've been hemming and hawing about this, and then Chaos Ball comes out on Kickstarter, and it's $100 for 5 teams. Yeah. I'm like, that's a big price differential there, $100 for 5 teams versus 2 teams. So price definitely is part of it, right? It's part of, and I think that might be also a big factor when we get to Kickstarter. Is price might also be a big part there, as well. So, Ted, when you go to the phone, are you looking for specific reviews? Are you looking for ratings, or how do you handle that?
I guess an example of a game I just picked up. I just bought a Cartoona because you mentioned it on your podcast that I think you played with your kids.
Yes.
And you said it was a cool game, so I went and read up on it, and I was like, this sounds cool, and I just went and picked it up and played it with my kids. So a lot of my stuff is through recommendations. I think, like when I decide to actually like pull the trigger and get it, it's like, oh, someone like talked about it real favorably, and the way they talk about it sounds like a cool kind of gameplay. Like, it sounds like the kind of thing I'd be into.
So cool. So this is interesting. So what we've determined here is that all three of us like box art. We like to see the components, and we like to have reviews or comments or recommendations based on people we trust who've already played the game. Mm-hmm. Which is interesting, because when you come to Kickstarter, so let's think about this for a minute. Well, box art we usually have, but not always. So Kickstarter usually involves a really cool piece of artwork right at the top, right in the front of that video, right? They get the piece of artwork there. So clearly they get that part down, right? But then you've got, next up is the components. This gets tricky because not always do you have the fully fleshed out components on all Kickstarters, right? So that's one thing. And the second part we all talked about was reviews or feedback from people who've played the game, which is also challenging on Kickstarter because the game doesn't exist yet. And if you're a person who depends on podcasts and stuff, the Kickstarter window is typically 30 days. And given the recording cycle of most podcasts, it'd be pretty hard, or any review system, right, or magazines or whatever. There's no way to get the review out from when the Kickstart starts and get it out and have any meaningful impact by the time Kickstart ends, right? So it's really sort of challenging to do all that. And so let's talk about the Kickstarter stuff. How do we make the decisions? Like Ted, have you backed a lot of Kickstarters yourself?
Yeah. I actually star a lot of Kickstarters. Like I'll mark them as like, okay, I want to keep track of this, but I'm not sure if I want to back it yet. But yeah, I've definitely done, like, early on I did a few video games, like Faster Than Light and Banner Saga.
Oh, I did FTL. FTL was awesome. Yep.
Yeah, FTL was just amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think it was just a combination of like, looking at a good video, and then looking at the team, like what's their experience, what kind of company are they, and do they seem like they can actually pull this off? With like with a board game, it's kind of like the production question. With a video game, it's technology. Are they going to be able to like ship this, get all the bugs worked out, and that kind of thing? So I think a big part of it with me is when I decide to actually back a project, it's like, does the team seem like it's got a good track record?
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the team is sort of taking the replace of the recommendation or review.
Yeah.
You're sort of banking on the known quantity of the team is like, well, since, like I've said it before, they are a sponsor of the show, so whoop. But Cool Mini or not, they continually deliver on their Kickstarters. So I have confidence that if I back their Kickstarter, it will happen and will be extremely close, if not to exceed my expectations, assuming the game's something I want to play, right? So for me, it's definitely like, I'm with you on that, Ted, specifically, if the recommendations are placed by the team. So I know the people and I know who's involved with it, or I've seen their other work, I have a much higher degree of confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I backed like Zombicide and Relic Knights because it was CMON, and I think like that's like that's a big part of I think why Rivet Wars did so well is because people, because people were like, oh, it's Cool Mini, you can kind of trust those guys, like they'll give you a certain bit of quality, if you back this project.
Yeah, I think there's totally like all it takes is for you to get burned once on Kickstarter, and you start looking at who you're actually supporting. And I, with my Kickstarter, again, I'm kind of bizarre in my impulse buying, even on Kickstarter, believe it or not. And it'll be like I was a backer for I don't even remember what it was now, but little metal flat sci-fi coins.
Oh, yes.
Those would be so cool for that, that time once 8 years ago when I played Star Wars, the RPG. And I jumped in there with $25. And to me, I'm like $25. And these guys had a bunch of Kickstarters already under their belt. And, they had one of those deals that Kickstarter seems to randomly sometimes squash and sometimes not, where people are like, and if you get this bundle, you get these previous Kickstarter products also. And sometimes that's okay and sometimes it's not. Well, they had it going on, but all that really meant to me, I had no interest in those games, but it meant that they had already had successful Kickstarters beforehand. And so I jumped in there, and to be totally honest, I don't remember when those coins are coming to me. But someday, in the mail, I'm going to get a bunch of little metal sci-fi coins that are like credits that go. I don't even remember the denomination I chose, but it was a total impulse buy. And
that is funny when you get those Kickstarter shipments shows up and you're like, oh yeah, I backed this thing.
It's like Christmas. What is that?
That's
awesome.
I got into Kickstarter late, and the only one so far that should have shipped a year ago, and I still haven't gotten anything. So, yeah. So I don't know what it feels like to suddenly get one of those shipments in. But thanks.
You have the negative experience there.
That would be the negative experience.
I backed a really cool project that was it was one of the artists from like the old school D&D, Jeff D. He was one of my one of the artists that influenced me a lot, especially as a kid. And he started like redoing his artwork because I guess TSR, they threw out all the original art from like all the original like monster manuals and all that kind of stuff. Wow. So what he did a bunch of Kickstarters, just him recreating the art in like a high quality and then selling prints of that. And that was awesome. I thought that was like a really cool instance of like just kind of helping one individual who had a vision for something. Right. Yep. And that was really I thought like a cool example of a Kickstarter that helped this great artist kind of like give back to the community in a way, because like I always loved his art. I could have a really good print of his stuff, and at the same time you're supporting him to do like what he loves to do.
Yeah, those almost are like you want to get something, but you're kind of at the same time you're just supporting an idea. It's almost like donating to art.
Yeah.
Art's fun. Yeah. Or PBS or something.
I donated for the Veronica Mars movie, and I've never even seen Veronica Mars. Oh my God, all my friends are all excited about this. I'm going to do it too. And I like just jumped in for, I don't even know, like $5.
Yeah. There you go. But
it was neat. I mean, and I'm not getting anything from that other than like the updates, which are cool because I'm getting these updates from a movie production. So, there is a neat element of Kickstarter also that's just this cool, I want to be involved in this artistic endeavor or be able to help somebody who has a vision, which is
Yeah.
Well, so back to the games.
Yes. Sorry.
No, it's good. That's cool because that is important though, because I guess, so if there's an artistic direction, because I think the components really, something else a lot of people have noticed, you see this on Board Game Geek a lot, the Kickstarters the gaming related Kickstarters that continually do extremely high numbers typically involve miniatures, right? They typically involve over the top components. You don't see a lot of, Euro style board games on Kickstarter. There are out there and they do fine, but they don't do, $500,000, $1 million, $2 million. They'll do, $10,000, $20,000, maybe $30,000, right? Which is a lot of money, don't get me wrong, but it's just they're not hitting those numbers that the miniature ones do. Do you guys think that has to do with this art idea? This idea that, well, the rules may or may not be great. We hope they are, and more about that in a minute, but I'm really backing bringing some kind of cool art concept into existence that wouldn't otherwise happen if I didn't help support this.
I don't know. I think that's kind of ignoring the human greed component that kind of because as we've discussed before, the main cost with these games at that level is the tooling, and
right.
Once you've paid for the tooling, the actual plastic model is pennies a piece. So you can throw in these and then if we reach $1 million, you each get 100,000 models, and you're going, oh my God, and the guy's so I think there is an element of, I think a lot let's take what was it, Sedition Wars is an excellent example that kind of ties those two things together. The models were awesome, but on top of that, you were getting just a ludicrous number of models.
That's true.
And so. If they weren't quite as cool, would they have made quite as much money? Probably not. But I guarantee you there's a bunch of guys who are well, they're kind of crappy, but they're going to be awesome for when I'm role-playing science fiction, blah, 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 and jump on there just because as human beings, we want to collect. And we want to collect the cool things that we want, whether that's fruit and meat in our cave or really cool plastic models. And I think there's an element there that some companies in Kickstarter have really kind of hooked into, whereas they know that we paid for the tooling of this mold 8 stretch goals ago, but in real life it would cost the customer $20 for these 10 models, so we can give it to them even though it's at this point it's negligible for us. So I think that's where kind of. Why a lot of these model-heavy Kickstarters really explode.
Ted, how do you feel about that? Is that do you think that's the same thing? The bulk of models is what sells them?
I think so. I mean, I think that's definitely a factor. I think people definitely are talking about miniature count and stuff like that, and it's definitely a thing that's there's definitely a reason to think that way, because if you're if you look at if I had to buy this army of guys, it would cost me for just 10 guys, it would be $50, where on Kickstarter I'm getting twice as many for the same price or something. Right. That's a good reason. And with Sedition Wars too, you're and Mike McVeigh's working on this stuff. So
back to the people involved.
Oh my God, this is awesome. This is almost like a will this ever happen again kind of feeling, which is kind of cool. So there's definitely that factor. So it's getting a good deal. Plus, it's being done by these these people who you've just seen their work over the years, and now this is your chance to help them make their project come out. So
I know for sure that was with what I was because it does go to the art a little bit or the once in a lifetime sort of thing. I just backed the Robotech tactical RPG.
Yeah,
I'm a huge Robotech fanboy. Here's someone who's finally making really, really cool, highly detailed, Robotech mechs, and they did sort of the same thing that Craig was saying. A lot of their stretch goals were simply, and here's 2 more, and here's 2 more. But what I got excited about was, and here's a whole new sculpt. So maybe every 10,000 would be 2 more guys, but then every 30 or 50,000 there'd be a whole new sculpt. And to be honest, that's what impressed me about Rivet Wars. Almost most of your stretch goals were and here's a new sculpt. I'm holy crap! How did you guys do that?
Yeah.
But those are the ones that really amaze me, and that's one of the reasons I get involved in a lot of these, because it is. You're very right. Even if you look at Chaos Ball, you're up to like, what, 5 teams, and it's going to be 6 teams now. That's not going to happen again at that price point. It's just not. Once it's done, you're going to be buying the game at regular store shelf prices, and each team's going to be, $30 or $50 or whatever they are, and it's going to be more like the traditional, miniature prices you pay. So I think there is definitely, from a miniature gamer point of view, we know how much these guys normally cost per guy, and we're just like, how do they do that? And it's obviously volume.
And then the sculpts on that, I saw those at the CMON convention, and man, it was awesome. I got to hang out with Eric and like check out the game and like see a lot of the stuff that like they haven't even shown yet, and it's just such beautiful stuff. And like, like art, there's no way you're going to be able to like do this again like at these prices. Like it's just like got to get in on that because it's such a cool kind of opportunity.
Yeah. So now, so all that said, so we're definitely into the bling, we're definitely into the box cover, we're definitely into the art, we're definitely into the models and the components. And that's another thing I was thinking about too. Like a lot of these Kickstarters, all the little markers and stuff in the games are all usually kicked up a notch in the Kickstarter. So instead of tokens, you're getting little plastic bits. And like, for example, even Dreadball had the cool plastic field you could get with the plastic bits and stuff, but you can't get now. That was just Kickstarter only. That kind of stuff comes in there. But how important are the rules? Do you guys want to see the rules on Kickstarter? Will you back something without seeing the rules at all on Kickstarter?
I like to see at least a video of like them playing. You know what I mean? If I can't see the rules, like see a demo game kind of played, so I can kind of see what the mechanic is and stuff like that. I backed that game Myth. I thought that was pretty cool, like from the guys who did Mercs and stuff like that. And I was interested because I really dig like how Zombicide has that like co-op kind of thing going, and I was really interested in like other games that have like a co-op kind of mechanic. So for me, like seeing the video of the guys playing and how it worked really intrigued me, and that kind of sold me on that game, and the art was cool. Yeah.
I don't think I would unless there was like unless the models were so gorgeous that I wanted them regardless of the game and justified the price. I don't think I would back a game that I didn't know anything about rules wise.
Yeah, I agree. I want to see.
Videos. The videos I think are key.
The videos are key, and then getting the detailed videos up are also key. Like one thing that frustrates me though is a lot of times on these Kickstarters, they'll just show like a demo game played, and that I think that's always a mistake because then they show the game in its simplest form, which I guess is good. But then a lot of people will be like, "Oh, it's really simple. It looks silly," and then later they'll put up the more detailed video. I always wish they put the more detailed one up front, so you can see the tactical complexity of these games because a lot of them are really really good, but they kind of shoot themselves in the foot with making the early videos kind of simple. I don't know. How do you guys feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely heard that with Rivet Wars. Like people at first were like, "Oh, this seems real simple," and stuff like that. And then when people started to understand the depth that was there, that they realized there was a little more complexity. So I think that's a really good point. Like you don't want to, you kind of don't want to make it too simple and just show like gloss over some of the details, and then people don't even realize they're there.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think you want that opening video to be more flashy and almost be the box art sort of.
Yeah,
it drags people. And then I think it's very important to have an in-depth video right near there on the page, literally like, physically near there. So it's like you watch that, like, oh, that was cool. Click, I go on to the next one, and that's my in-depth version.
Yeah.
Like I understand, I totally get what you're saying, Russ, but I think you almost want that sort of blinged up, shorter gotcha video to be the first thing that you see that intrigues you, and that's what draws a guy who wants to know more about the rules to go in and there is a video right there that's got more of the rules available to me, sort of thing.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that first video should be like a commercial, like a minute, 30 seconds to a minute or whatever, be short, but it should be a commercial that highlights somehow highlights the depth of the gameplay along with the components by somehow integrating them. I don't know how you do it exactly, but I see what you're saying. And then also I'd want a more detailed one. So that's great. Can you guys, so Ted, like have you identified with yourself? I don't know if people are this introspective. I am sometimes, but like, do you kind of know what the kind of things that are going to draw you into Kickstarter before you even look at, like if you start looking at a page like, oh crap, this is going to suck me right in. Like,
yeah.
What are those components? What are some of those things?
it's definitely the art stuff that
Yeah.
like if I see a certain like style or like it just appeals to me. Yeah, I know like I'm definitely gonna like drop some money for this Kickstarter and stuff like that. There's like, I try to be good though, like we was talking about with the budget with the game store kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like I definitely try to be like, okay, I've already backed like this many games. I've got to back off. I mean, there's definitely sometimes too you have like that almost like instead of buyer's regret, like a backer's regret, like oh, if I should have backed this instead of that, or I didn't back that. So definitely, I definitely have to be careful. Like I know when a game's gonna draw me in, because too you'll find out about games from people tweet about them or post them on Facebook, and they're your friends and they're into the same kind of stuff, and you're like, oh, why are you telling me about this? Like,
Stop!
I don't need this, So yeah, it's definitely some of that.
Now, do you find both or either of you, you more regret not having backed stuff? Do you have more regrets on that score, or do you have more regrets on I backed it and I probably shouldn't have or shouldn't have at that level? Like, is there more backers remorse for, like, oh, maybe I got a little too overexcited? Does that happen more often, or is it more like, oh, I wish I had jumped in on that one?
I think so far I've been pretty like level-headed. Like I haven't had too many regrets actually, with stuff I've backed. Because usually I'll get the thing and I'll kind of forget almost that I backed it. Because sometimes it takes so long to get your thing.
Right.
And then you get it and you're like, wow, this is great. I backed some art books, some some games and some toys and stuff like that. And then when you get them, you're like, it's kind of neat seeing the thing there. So I think by the time I actually get the thing I backed, I haven't really had any big regrets or anything like that so far.
Yeah, I haven't regretted any of the ones I backed so far. I have regretted missing a couple.
Yeah.
I've only backed I think 3 games on Kickstarter, but 4, I guess. 3 was just 4 games, I guess, which is only, but it's over these last year and a half. Which for me, I buy at least a game a month, so that's not too bad for me. But one of the things I do regret, like I'll find a game that was Kickstarter, and then someone will have something cool from that game. Like I am in love now with Sentinels of the Multiverse. I just found out about this game, way after it came out. It was launched on Kickstarter, and if you backed it on Kickstarter, you got like this huge play mat and all these other things. And the other game I missed that I really wish I had backed was The Duke, which is this 2-player sort of abstract wooden piece game, like on a chessboard. And it's fine. The full version of it that comes in the box is awesome. It's got a nice little fold-up board like a chessboard. But if you had backed it, you got like this. It was like a leather roll that you roll out and becomes the board, and just has much more of a tactile sort of medieval feel as you play it. Like little things like that, and you end up buying the game anyway. And you just know if you'd gone back and backed it on Kickstarter, you'd gotten everything you have now at the same price plus so much more. So I do have not backers regret when I find a gem that I missed out on the Kickstarter. Yeah, but at the same time, I'm glad I don't over Kickstart. If that makes sense.
You're no Will. Will is what
Will Urban. Yeah, our friend Will is a very aggressive Kickstart backer.
He just dropped out of 10 Kickstarters, and that wasn't even half of what he was.
Wow, I've never heard that term, an aggressive Kickstarter.
Yes.
We're gonna have an invention soon.
Exuberant, maybe is the word. He loves and he's always been he's a hardcore gamer. And he collects a lot of stuff. He's a basement full of everything. Great guy, but he also backs Kickstarters like they're going out of style. I mean, it doesn't matter. Video games, board games, comic book. He's all over the map. That little Trivial Pursuit pie thing on his completely full. It is.
That's awesome.
It is.
The interpretive dance, he's backing it.
He's on that, right?
I am a tree. What kind of tree?
We were joking with him the other day because they sent out a map of the United States, and different states were darker depending on how many people they're backed, how much of the percentage of Kickstarters are backed in that state. And we were saying that New Hampshire should have been darker based on Will's purchases alone.
Just around his house.
Just around his house, should have been a little black dot. Yeah, good stuff.
That's good.
So yeah, and so last thing we want to check on is, so you mentioned Ted, and I do this a lot too, Craig. I'm not going to lie. What I try to do now is I star Kickstarters more than immediately backing them. I very rarely immediately back them unless they have an early bird thing, which is very crafty. I'll look at the early bird really carefully if I still have an opportunity. Like I got in on Robotech with the early bird, I was very excited about. But I'll normally star them and I'll wait near the end because usually a day or two later you look back at the game and do I really need this? So a lot of games I thought I really wanted. A couple days after thinking about them, I unstarred. But have there been games where you're kind of on the fence about you start them, but then due to the stretch goals or other changes, you've decided to jump in on the project?
Yeah, definitely. There's somewhere I start just to kind of like give myself a cool off period, you know,
Yeah,
like was I a little too like excited about that one? Let me just chill and, you know, really think about it and decide. And then, I'm not too big into like holding out though for the stretch goals. Like you know, if the main game project seems good, I think that's good enough for me to back it. And then if I get other stuff on top of it, that's awesome. But I think like I try to look at like is the core, you know, quality of the game, is it going to be good? And if it is, that's awesome. I want to back this project. I want to help it, you know, kind of come about. And then if I can get other stuff and they can do more stuff than they want to, that's awesome. Like that's gravy on top of it. So so usually it's just more like me kind of having to like convince myself over a couple days to like really pull the trigger and back it, as opposed to like waiting, you know, to see like kind of like waiting till the end. Because I think that can actually backfire and hurt projects if people like wait till the end to get in. And then like other people kind of like a project can kind of lose momentum and then not hit some of those goals if you don't, you know, just kind of back it soon enough.
Agreed. Craig, have you done the same thing?
I totally have. I've done twice. I'm looking at my support page so I can see all the different things, and that one that I got totally burned on, and then Jimmy Django Project. Enough said there. And the coins,
coins.
The first game that I finally jumped back into was that Sales of Glory game.
Yeah.
And I realized, like, I got in on the early bird captain, and I was all excited, and I was going to have, like, 8 million ships. And then I started thinking, like, we've played games by Ares before. We're playing Wings of War and all that. And I know for a fact that I'm never going to need that many ships. Because we've played huge, like, massive battles with everybody brings their stuff and everybody plays one plane, and we still didn't have that many planes in action. And so I right towards the end, I leaped from early bird captain to early bird lieutenant because, and I think this was a math error on their part. They had done their stretch goals in such a way that there were stretch goals that clearly nobody cared about. Things like an extra, you know, punch token sheet and things like that. And then there were ones that were really cool, like a foam game mat that, you know, you play the whole game on this awesome game mat that's actually like a mouse pad material. And then the difference in those two stretch goals was crazy. Well, by the time they were done, I think they must have lost track of what they were, like what the stretch goals were and where, because like the way they did it, every backer level was getting different stretch goals. And by the time they were done, the lieutenant was getting literally everything from the captain except for 4 ships.
Right.
So I was like, and I'm leaping. I'm abandoning this ship and I'm jumping to that other ship that's much cheaper. And so that was partly, I realized I was never going to need that much, which I was proud of because normally I'm a completist, as you know, Russ.
Yes.
And partly because their management of their stretch goals was such that they had eventually given away the store on multiple different levels that, like, there really was no impetus to go to that higher level unless you wanted those extra ships. So there was that one. And then there was another one that I was 100% behind, and I actually pulled out completely. So I'd rather not say what it was. But ultimately what caused me to pull out of that was they had done it for one product, and that one product had a delivery date of X.
Yeah.
And there nowhere did it say that any of the other products had a different delivery date. But if you read through 20 pages of the comments, you found, oh yeah, well, if you get this product, it's like 3 months after the delivery date. Wow. And if you get this product, it's 6 months after the delivery. And I was like, seriously? And then they made the huge mistake. If you're going in, I totally understand doing the Kickstarter and you're not like giving away the store. You're trying to start your business. But one thing you don't want to do is put out there like we're giving you a 5% savings.
Yeah.
I was like, 5% savings, and I'm going to wait a year and a half. And I was like, I'm not going to do it. And so I pulled out because I think that to me that was I don't think their intention was to be raw on that one and to trick people like. This one's kind of cool, and you'll get it in October. This one's awesome, and you'll get it in January. And I don't think they were. I don't think they were trying to do a bait and switch. But to me, that's exactly what it looked like. And so between that and the fact that I was only going to be saving like a really pathetic percentage on the retail, I pulled out. But at the other end, you've got Dwarven Forge, which I have drooled over at Gen Con 5 years in a row now, but it's like $120 for one tiny little dungeon room.
Right.
And they did the Dwarven Forge game tiles, and the next thing you know, for $400, you're getting 12. I mean, it was crazy. It got insane. And I jumped on there, and that one was the only one I've done really so far where I just kept adding.
Yeah, nice.
I was like, oh my God, I got to do that. Oh my God, I got to do that. Oh my God, I got to do that. And by the time I was done, I was way beyond what I had.
So can you cover your basement now in dungeon tiles?
I could. I'm not.
Tile your bathroom.
Right.
I'm going to top. Absolutely. Well, I'm going to be living in it when it shows up in my wife. But, I think I could probably do a 4x8 dungeon. So
nice.
That's a lot of dungeons.
That's cool.
So, so I was all excited. But every one of these I'm looking at now, after that first one and the coins, I knew who the people were, and I knew like that I was dealing with an established company. Russ, did you jump in on the Name of the Wind playing card deck?
I did not.
Oh, yeah.
Although it looked fun, but I did not.
$12. You could. I had to do it. And Jim Butcher's one of the cards.
Yes, I saw that too. That's pretty hilarious.
And it was albino dragon, which they were throwing those albino dragon shirts at us at Gen Con. I was like, I know they exist because I have a shirt. I don't know who they are or what they do, but I know they exist because I have one of their shirts.
Actually, that's a good point. We talked about demos and recommendations, and I noticed I have definitely backed more Kickstarters if I've seen the game in person at a con.
Yeah.
So I backed Zombicide. I saw it demoed to me at Adepticon while the Kickstarter was running, and I literally backed it on my phone after playing it.
Right, I remember that.
Another one I did that with was Crossmaster, which is this really cool, very anime-style, little chibi dudes that my girls will love game, and they had it at PAX East. And so I actually saw the models. Are fantastic. They're all pre-painted. They're like vinyl, but they're really high-end vinyl, like Tokidoki, what is Tokido? What that stuff is.
I think you're just making that up.
I don't remember how you pronounce it. These little pony things my girls collect. Anyway, they look like those, but these little animated creatures. That one I did because I saw it in person. Looked fantastic. The rules look cool. And so if I see them, there's definitely something to, as you're suggesting, and I played Rivet Wars at TempleCon. So it's like, yeah, I can see it. I can physically see it exists. It just gives you that sense of like you're not back in air.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you coordinate that, but if you can somehow get your demo team to a con while your Kickstarter is running, always a plus.
I think it's a huge plus.
Then,
it's also a huge plus if you're working with people who have done other Kickstarters that you've seen their stuff.
Yeah, yep, exactly. One last thing I want to cover before we run out of time here, because the Dunkin' Donuts guy has given us the evil eye, and Ted, I wanted to ask you this in particular, but
always giving us the evil eye.
So I think traditionally Kickstarters usually have a lot of different levels you can jump in on. A lot of levels, from the $1 level all the way to like the $2,000 level. Have dinner with the designers and name his firstborn child after you, kind of thing. And you get in these confusions where like, okay, which of these levels are going to be the ones where all the free add-ons come in, where you have to pay extra on other levels? And one thing I thought was really interesting, and this is Cool Meanie or Not, who's done a lot of these before, and they used to have a lot of levels, was Chaos Ball has only really one level.
Right.
Yeah.
I kind of like that because I looked at that and I'm like, okay, this is simple, right? It's the $100 level. There was the early bird level, which is the only other one, and it's gone. And for $100, I'm going to get the box set plus a guaranteed one extra team. So there's really, you're all in, right? Because you're like, well, I might as well buy it if I'm thinking I'm going to get the game anyway, because I'm getting, it may only be a 5% savings, but I don't know that. I just know there's an extra team that's Kickstarter exclusive. So I know you got to go to a convention. So
keep the math in the background.
Right. So I don't know how much that Goblin team's worth, but I know that it's the only way I'm going to get them short of finding Cool Media at a con. I got to back it now. So do you guys think that the simpler Do you like a lot of backer levels? Or do you think this new sort of a tactic of a simple 1 or 2 backer levels is the smarter way to go? Ted, what do you think?
I think for like a tight board game like Chaos Ball, it makes a lot of sense because it's like this is everything you need to play, and this is like, you know, it's kind of like everybody's in it together for like this one kind of effort. So I think that makes a lot of sense on that project. You know, you don't feel like, you know, I think I've read about a lot of people having anxiety over like what level should I pick? Should I do this? Should I do that? You know, and if you read some of the comments, it's people trying to figure out like what should they back and at what level. And I think kind of taking that. What's that?
What's the sweet spot is what
exactly
right. Yeah, our friend Will, again, the super Kickstarter guy, he's emailed out Excel spreadsheets running the numbers on various Kickstarters, you know, back it at this level because you'll get this.
Yeah, totally. Trying to find like the
sweet spot,
best return and stuff like that. So I think for that game, it's a really cool idea and a really neat strategy.
I like the trend because I could totally have seen them have gone in and said, okay, here's the level where you get the 4 teams. Here's the level where you get the 5th team. Here's the level where you can pick, you know, werewolves or whatever. You know, you can see them work it up like all the other ones, but it was sort of interesting. It just, you go in, you look at it. Do you like it? I'm getting a bonus team. Sure, I'll pick that level. I'm done. I don't know if that works. We'll see if, you know, at the end if it's better or worse, but it was sort of interesting, I thought. All right, cool. Well, Ted, thank you so much for, it was fun to run in here at Dunkin' Donuts. Really appreciate it.
On the chat.
Yeah.
So people want
you guys here.
Yeah, we're happy to have you on the full show coming up here in a couple weeks. And one question for you though: if someone wants to follow up on you and what you're up to, where would they go to see all your latest activities?
Just going to rivetwars.com.
Sweet.
Or going to Rivet Wars on Facebook or Twitter.
All right, excellent. Well, we'll have you on the main show here in a little while, and we'll talk more about Rivet Wars and all that excitement in the near future.
Awesome.
Yep, absolutely.
Thanks, Ted.
Cool.
Thanks for purchasing a D6G Lost Chapter. Supporting the show helps it grow.
Why don't you say something interesting and profound and brief?
So I'm really excited to be on your show.
Well, that was well done. All 3 captured. Nice.
Very nice.
All right.